Hi, I'm Elliot, and my glasses are catching the light horribly. So we're going to ignore that. It's currently May of 2025, which means it's time to recap all of the books I read in 2024, only 5 months late. I am obviously in no way qualified to be making this video. I just like to read. You know, I like to give my 2 cents on things, and I like to talk about books. So here we are. My first book of 2024 was The Rabbit Hutch. It's been a year and a half, so don't quote me on any of these, but I believe it's about 4 adults who have aged out of the foster care system, and just like their lives as they grapple with how hard and what a failure the foster care system is, especially in America, and the Midwest is where it's set. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was incredibly poignant, and I love it when novels do the thing where there's multiple storylines going on at once and they all culminate into one. Not to give spoilers, but you know, they all tie together, and that's always a really fun full circle moment for me. I love to see it. My second read is one that's a little bit controversial. This was a reread for me, but it was A Little Life. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it can be incredibly triggering for people. There's some incredibly sensitive subject matter, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought this was a genius book, the way that it explores abuse and trauma and everything. But I saw a video essay on YouTube a couple weeks ago from Owl Criticisms. It was a well thought out video, and I learned some unsavory things about the author that I sort of wish I hadn't learned. Basically, the culmination of what the person was saying in this video is that the overarching theme of A Little Life is that some lives are not worth living. And I think that's a really horrible thing to be putting into writing, especially when it's so popular amongst young people. So would I recommend it? I don't know. I did really enjoy it twice over, but I also had some really intense reactions to it, especially the first time when I was a teenager reading this. It fed into my own trauma at the time, and I would probably only recommend this if you know that you can read things with incredibly sensitive matter, you have a strong stomach, and you're not really fazed by that sort of thing, for better or for worse. All right, on a lighter note, just kidding, my next read was the collected poems of Sylvia Plath. I love Plath. Her poems, a lot of them, they go over my head because I am not the most intelligent reader. I try, but I am unfortunately not. I am just someone who reads for fun. I love Plath. I love the bell jar. I have a bell jar tattoo, you know, like the one that you've definitely seen if you're a Plath fan on the internet. And the collected poems, her imagery is incredible. The way she goes about writing, they're very thought-provoking poems. They're not the sort of poems that you can just read and understand on the first try, at least not for me, not for the average reader. And I would absolutely recommend these, especially if you're looking for something with a bit more substance to it. All right, my next book that I read, I lent to a friend and never got back, but this is what it looks like. And it was Little Fires Everywhere. I love a complex family dynamic. This book is incredibly popular. It's not an underground book by any means, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it had a lot to say, especially about the relationship between mothers and daughters, which as this video progresses, we'll find out I read a lot about. And I just thought this was a really lovely, especially if you're looking for a lighter read that's not something that you really need to sink your teeth into. It was a good book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. All right, so at the beginning of last year, I was taking this really incredible course in statistics. And so the next book I read was The Y-Axis. It's about statistics, and it brings in some of the psychology around it, how statistics are so easy to manipulate, to lie to people, to lie to the public, and how you really need to be on the lookout for those sorts of things. Very eye-opening, incredibly important to understand statistics, obviously, at just like a base level. You don't have to be getting a bachelor's in statistics, but it is important to have such a baseline understanding to know that everything is not as it seems. And I think that this is a really lovely, really accessible way to understand that concept. It's an easier read with complex topics. What else can you ask for? Next was The Stranger in the Lifeboat. I love a good religious analogy. I thought this was incredibly profound. I thought it was a fresh take on religion that I hadn't heard before, and I absolutely and it's short, very short. I absolutely recommend this to anyone who's interested in anything like that. Or even if you're not, it's just kind of a fun and interesting read. My next few books, I gave my copies all to my mom to read and she never gave them back, so bear with me, I'll be putting photos up on the screen. First is Decline and Fall from Evelyn Waugh. Decline and Fall is about this guy, Paul, something like that. Anyways, and it's about his misadventures after he gets expelled from school. It's very much written in the style that it was housed in. It was written in the 40s or the 50s, and it takes place in the 20s, and you can tell, which is a good or bad thing depending on who you're talking to, but it really did remind me of the one line in Saltburn where Felix is saying that
a lot of War's characters are based on my family, actually.
Yeah, I was completely obsessed with that house.
there are some Saltburn-like shenanigans. It's not the ingesting of bodily fluids or anything, but it is very much, the family dynamics are very similar, stuff like that. It was enjoyable, not my favorite of all time, enjoyable. Next was Never Let Me Go, one of the classics of this genre, I don't know what you would call it. I found it obviously unnerving in the way that a lot of people do, but in like a bit of a good way, I guess. I thought that for some reason the big reveal, the plot twist at the end, which I won't say because I don't want to spoil it, I thought that was supposed to be like a big reveal, plot twist moment. And apparently it wasn't supposed to be a plot twist. It kind of took away from the experience for me because I was like, this plot twist was so predictable, and then my friend was like, it wasn't supposed to be like a plot twist. But I don't know, that was weird. It felt like a bit of drudgery to get through. And I don't mean to sound anti-intellectual in that way, but it was hard for me to get to. I found it dull. I found it a little bit boring. Oh, okay. I loved Night Bitch. I still haven't seen the movie that they apparently just came out with. My mom's been really wanting to see it because she read it too and she enjoyed it, but because of the way that the book is, it requires suspension of disbelief from the reader. It's a lot of confusion about what's real, what's sort of hallucinated. A lot of that is so easy to lose when you're having a film adaptation, which is why I'm sort of hesitant to see that. But the book I loved. I thought it was really engaging. I love a good mother dynamic, and it's just like a really interesting premise that is seen. It's not a new idea. We've seen it in Kafka, we've seen it, that's the only one I can think of, but lots of places, I'm sure. But it was really engaging. I loved the sort of carnal elements of it. I liked the idea of I don't want to spoil too much. It was really good. Highly recommend. All right, my next was The Idiot. Not this version, but this version. I'm not a big romance fan, that's the thing. I don't love reading romance books. I find them to be very repetitive. Don't like cancel me for that, but I'm just not a big romance fan. And this was more of a romance than I thought. I would be fine with a romance. I would not find it displeasing in any like grand sense, except for the fact that this book, in the way that it wrote the romance, if you can even call it that, is incredibly slow. It was like 600 pages, if I'm remembering correctly, of just the main character pining over this mediocre guy. And that's not interesting or engaging to read in any way. That's my 2 cents on The Idiot. My next book was Harold. I read this in one sitting. I loved it. I thought it was this was a fresh idea. It's entirely stream of conscious from the perspective of an 8-year-old, which was really cool and just, you know, really interesting. Kids are weird, and I love it. All takes place over one school day, so you just get to hear everything that he's thinking over what happens in one school day for him. Yeah, it was engaging. There was not much substance, I guess, but it was like the middle of summer. I was flying home from the beach. I was let's read something fun and lighthearted, and it served that purpose. It was great. In a similar vein, another beach vacation that same summer, I read Pineapple Street. Again, fun, lighthearted, rich people misbehaving, which is a genre that my mom always talks about. None of the characters like have any sort of substance. They're all kind of caricatures, which can serve a purpose, but I don't really believe that there was any purpose it was serving here. It was just kind of to be caricatures. And it was fun, but definitely not, again, full of substance. I don't know if I would recommend that one. I would definitely recommend it if you're in search of a lighter read, but there are better light reads to be found elsewhere. Okay, next up is A Certain Hunger, which if you've ever interacted with me or know me or whatever, you know I love the whole cannibalism thing, and I get it's overdone. I understand that that's cringe now, I guess. I don't really know. Don't quote me on internet anything. But I love the whole cannibalism trope, whatever you want to call it. And I think here it's used in a sort of fresh way. The whole book is told from the perspective of this serial killer cannibalistic girly as she's in prison, and she sort of is recounting her experiences in her field, if you will. I really adored it. It's stomach churning, it's gross, you are rooting for this horrible, horrible person, and I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. Okay, next was Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut. I am not the biggest Kurt Vonnegut fan. I feel as though he thinks himself to be this like incredibly genius, intelligent author, and that comes across very strongly in his writing. It's hard to read that kind of thing. It's not interesting, and it's definitely a turnoff for me, and I'm sure lots of other people. The book itself, it's a satirical commentary on the idea of war as a general sense through the main character who gets abducted by aliens and a bombing and whatnot. So throughout the book, he uses the idea of "so it goes" as a sort of almost nihilistic, absurdist perspective on everything that's happening. And I feel like it is definitely a more accessible philosophical book, for sure. But if you want to read about absurdism, read about absurdism. They're supposed to be funny, I think, but they just really never come across as such. There's a page in Breakfast of Champions where it's like listing the penis sizes of all the characters. I don't know. It's not my sense of humor, not really up my alley. I would prefer to just get philosophy straight from the source. After that, I read Bunny, and I love Awad? I'm not sure how you say it, but I love this author. This was my first of hers, and since I've become such a big fan. Bunny is incredibly stylistic. The aesthetics of it are just, her aesthetics in general are just so enticing. They really draw you in. Love them. This is another one that uses the suspension of disbelief from the reader to the author's advantage, and I just love that. I love an unreliable narrator. Great book, incredible, one of the craziest plot twists that leaves me like, oh my god. So good. Okay, next up was White Nights, Dostoevsky. A classic. So much yearning in this book. It's about the main character whose name I've forgotten. Even if I did remember it, I would butcher the pronunciation. His yearning obsession with this one young girl who is waiting for her lover to come sweep her away and whatnot. And god, the feelings of loneliness and solitude that permeate this book, even when our main character is in the company of the person that he believes he's in love with, it's insane. Dostoevsky, now that's a genius. That is a genius. Absolutely love, recommend to absolutely anyone. It's so small, anyone can read it. Highly recommend. Next up was When We Lost Our Heads, which is another one about obsession. It's told about Marie Antoinette and her like lesbian lover. I love a WLW moment, and this was another one. It didn't really stick out to me in any particular way besides the fact that it was about Marie Antoinette. I think if you take out that historical factor, it's really nothing all that special, but it was fun. It was an enjoyable read. Again, with the aesthetics being big, I mean, I love a headstrong female character. I just don't have much to say about it. Next up was Big Swiss, which I was recommended so many times. It was another about a WLW obsession moment, but I failed to see again how it was really special. I understand there was, here's the thing. The way that it was told from the perspective of the transcriber girly for the therapist, that was interesting. That was something new I'd never seen before. But the rest of it, illicit affair of a married woman and another woman, it's, again, nothing new. It's tales been told for centuries. But it was enjoyable. And that seems to be the point that I am circling around to again and again. But it was enjoyable. I liked reading it. Next one. Lie With Me. I loved this book. It is so small, but it is so filled with this internalized homophobia. It's heartbreaking. It's a sort of tragic tale of a gay man, obviously, and his illicit, I hesitate to call them even desires, because what he feels for this man is definitely deeper than that. And it's just a tragic, heartbreaking, and all too common tale of queer heartbreak. And I think it's really poignant, and a lot of it is situational, which is maybe one of the worst heartbreaks, especially in a queer context. I can't recommend this enough. It is such a short read, but absolutely heartbreaking and incredibly poignant. Yes. If you've ever interacted with me, seen a video of mine, talked to me in person, you know that I love The Secret History. Everybody loves The Secret History, obviously. So I think that Donna Tartt, when read at a superficial level, can seem incredibly shallow. But the thing about this book in particular is that these characters are meant to be caricatures, and they're meant to be caricatures, unlike the other book that I was talking about. They're meant to say something about academia, and I think that the things that Donna Tartt has to say about academia are incredibly poignant, and they're incredibly real, and they still permeate an academic sort of society. I'm there now. I'm in university as we speak. This was published in the 90s, and these things, such as one female in the entire academic sphere, it's just incredibly poignant, incredibly it's gripping. It's an unreliable narrator, it's relatable characters. I am Richard, Richard is I, and it also is definitely something that makes you want to do your schoolwork more, for lack of a better word. It's, I don't know, it's all consuming for me. I am obsessive about it. Highly, highly recommend. Also, I learned this year how to bookbind, and so I have a custom bound copy of it. Pretty fun stuff. So, Secret History. Next up is Breakfast of Champions, also Kurt Vonnegut. This is the one that I was talking about. It's incredibly crass, sort of uncouth, but not in like a cute, quirky way like it thinks it is, at least to me. I don't really have much to say about Breakfast of Champions, except for that I did not enjoy it. I don't like Vonnegut. Next up is Wednesday's Child. This was another one I was really excited to read, but I can't even remember what the plot was at this point. So definitely don't quote me on this. I don't think anything stood out to me. If I can't even remember what it's about. Okay, before we tuck into this one, I have to show you how beautiful this rebind is. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm very proud of it. So this is These Violent Delights from Micah Nemerever, but look, it's got hearts underneath here. First of all, a fun little spine with the spine raisy thingies. I don't know what they're called. And oil painting on the inside that I did. Very proud. Oh, and the other side is like cute. Anyways, okay, These Violent Delights, one of my favorite books of all time. This is what it looks like normally. Holy shit. Okay, this is about two gay men who are both sort of sadistic in their tendencies, a little bit sociopathic. I don't really know the difference. And they go, well, okay, I don't want to spoil, but it is incredible. It's incredibly raw. It's incredibly visceral. You feel the pain of these two boys slash men. They're in a very transitional stage in their life. Incredible book. The author is a genius. I will to his fucking horn forever. I love him. And he is getting his PhD at a school like an hour away from mine, which is so cool. Next up is The Stranger from Camus. This is obviously a very popular book. Now this is how you read about, I'm pretty sure this is absurdism. I'm pretty sure this would count as absurdism. Absolutely brilliant book. The way that Camus writes this book particularly, it's just so dry, which is so perfect for the character. And everything is so beautifully written to convey the energy that he's trying to convey, which is such a rare thing to find in an author. Absolutely recommend, especially if you're into philosophy. Next up, Catcher in the Rye. I didn't have much to say in this except for that I found the narrator to be a whiny little bitch, excuse my language. I found him insufferable, as do apparently many people, but my roommate made me read it and I was a little bit mad at her because it was really not my cup of tea. Next up is Norwegian Wood. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so I was very excited about a book named after a Beatles song. My dog's name is Sgt. Puppers after Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Anyways, Norwegian Wood is held in such high regards, especially in the literary community, but I did not love it. I thought that it might be the main character, it might be the author, but misogyny shone through poignantly. The main character sort of viewed all the women in the story as objects of his desire, and when they weren't objects of his desire, then they were unimportant. And my mother completely disagrees. She read it right after me, but to each their own. Picture of Dorian Gray, a classic, short one. Again, with the obsession, as an artist, I love to see the representation. Great book. I don't really have much to say on it that hasn't already been said, so read it, I guess. Sorry, I'm looking at my Goodreads list for the year. Tender is the Flesh. Holy shit. As I said earlier, I love cannibalism as a trope. I think it's really interesting when done well. This book made me sick to my stomach. I have an incredibly strong stomach, especially for violence. If you haven't noticed, I love to read violent books. This made me genuinely sick. I was sitting next to my sister when I read like the third page, when they talk about how the cannibalism is going down in the book. Holy shit. She was like, "Are you good?" Because I like audibly gasped and like gagged. Absolutely recommend. Incredibly messed up book. I don't really have much else to say other than that. My reviews from here out are going to be a little bit briefer because I'm getting antsy and a little bit bored and I want to get to editing. So bear with me. Lapvona, I'm not really sure how you say it, but this, I gave it 2 stars. I found it to be, it definitely prioritized style over substance, which is fine usually for me, except in this situation I didn't like the style. So that was just a personal preference. It made me a little bit sick to think about. It felt very much like that one movie where they like smash the guy's head in. What's it called? Oh, Apostle, that's what it's called. Very similar vibes. And I don't love that vibe. This is another custom bound book, so this is what my copy looks like. For Notes from Underground, this is what a regular copy looks like. I love Dostoevsky. I think that he is obviously a genius. I highly recommend anything he has to say. His philosophies were for the time incredibly new and fresh and kind of things that hadn't been discovered yet or discussed yet, I guess is a better way to put it. But he's a genius. I love him. Highly recommend, especially if you're into philosophy. Okay, next up was Penance from Eliza Clark. Here's a crazy story. So I am from Colorado, which is a state in the US, obviously. And Colorado, because of what happened at Columbine, people love to come to my home state and attempt to do the same thing over again. People love to attempt school shootings in Colorado, and a lot of the times they're successful, unfortunately. Hi, editing Elliot. I somehow lost the footage, but in the book Penance, there is like, it's from the UK and it's from a British author, but there's a character in the book who's really like obsessed with this one school shooting. like a fictional school shooting from the state of Colorado, and it happened to take place at the very real high school that my mother attended, which was crazy. And I read that and I was like, oh my god. But, you know, other than that, it was a really good book. I thought its depictions of girlhood were sort of fresh and nuanced, and definitely applicable to my girlhood in particular, and I'm sure lots of other people's. All right, my next one is Woman Eating. I love vampires. I think I'm a vampire maybe in a different life. Maybe this one. I don't know. I love the prose, incredible. The plot matter, incredible. The main character, incredible. I loved this book, and it goes beautifully next to A Certain Hunger, like if you put them next to each other. I love this book. I love the insatiable hunger of the main character that I feel like a lot of people, especially women, can sort of empathize with. I love this. It's almost an objectification of men, a sort of turning this misogyny on its head, and becoming what we're not supposed to. And she's so uncouth, and she's like, I just love her, and I can't recommend it enough. All right, my next book was Perfume and Pain. Again, I love a queer femme romance. This one I liked a lot, although it gets hard to distinguish this from a few other ones that I read towards the end of the year that were super similar. I just remember really liking it, and it was one of those that has less substance, although I do remember that the main character really likes Donna Tartt. Fair enough, me too. But I thought it was fun. I liked it. Obviously, I liked it enough to recommend it and lend it to my friend. So, yeah. Next up for me was Exquisite Corpse. As we've seen as a pattern in my reading habits, I do love sadistic queer people, and this is no exception. They're just so messed up, these two characters. And it's incredibly compelling in this sort of macabre and just grotesque way, in the way that Donna Tartt says that we can't look away when something is so upsetting. And it stopped filming in the middle of my sentence and I don't remember what I was saying, so moving on. My next book was Acts of Desperation. I don't think I can show this on YouTube. This is what it looks like. I adored this book. I saw so much of myself in the main character, in her obsessive nature, in the way that she acted towards her love interest. And I think I do like small book reviews every time I finish a book on my Instagram story, and I think what I wrote was something along the lines of, it was too much like looking in a mirror that I couldn't deal. And I just, as much as I hated it for how much it was looking in a mirror, I just adored it. I thought it was a beautiful sort of tribute to the way that a lot of women tend to feel sort of trapped and almost manipulated into feeling this, not manipulated, but you know, I don't really know how to explain it, but obsessive, and not in a way that feels controllable. I don't really know how to voice what I'm feeling, but those who understand definitely understand. The next one I read was I Want You More. I really enjoyed this one. So I Want You More was, I believe, another WLW sort of romance, sort of an obsessive. This one was about a ghostwriter and the celebrity that she's writing for. And I fear that I can't say too much without giving it away, but it was really great and I loved it. Highly recommend. So my next read was The Eyes Are the Best Part, which is recommended to me a lot because of the cannibalism themes. And I loved it. It was cannibalism, what can I say? I thought that the prose was lovely. The subject matter was really compelling, really interesting, especially with how usually when we're talking about this cannibalism trope, it's viewed through the lens of a white woman. And so it's interesting to see it from a different perspective, even if it's just like a slightly different perspective. And I love the relationship dynamics between the mother-daughter. Great book. The next book that I read was Mother Thing. Holy shit. I gave this to my mom for Christmas. It's another kind of mother-daughtery, vibey novel, more cannibalism, of course. Love to see it. Definitely fucked up, carnal, grotesque, all of those things. This is another one that I can't really say much about without giving it away, so I just won't. But I recommend it. My next read was My Nemesis, which I really loved. This was more of a character study, at least for how I saw it. But it was short. I read this in a day. It was like a sit down and read it type of, I might have been in a sitting. It was just a really lovely book. I really enjoyed seeing how the relationships played out and all that jazz, and it was good. I enjoyed it. This was a series of short stories. It was called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. This is what it looks like. And this was another tale of obsession. I'm very prone to having an obsessive streak, if you couldn't tell. I really liked it. It was fucked up, it was weird, compelling, all those things. The next one was called Fruit of the Dead, another one that I can't say much about without spoiling the premise. And I don't want to spoil the premise because spoiling the premise kind of spoils the ending. But this is about a young woman who is a camp counselor, and she meets this like rich man and things get a little bit weird. I really thought this was a very poignant sort of look at how young women are so often taken advantage of. Obviously not this extreme of ways usually, but yeah, it was very compelling. I liked it. Okay, my next one was Thirst. This is another vampire novel. If I remember correctly, I said on my Instagram something like how it was really good for the first half, but then the modern half kind of threw me for a loop. And that's really all I can remember from this book, was just that the modern half kind of threw me off. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I loved the first half. I loved like the gothic vibes. I loved everything that was going on there, but the second half was not much of anything. All right, my last read in 2024 was Rouge from Mona Awad. Holy shit. I loved Rouge. I loved the mother-daughter relationships, obviously. I'm a sucker for those, in novels. I loved the aesthetics of the mom in this book. I've been wearing all sorts of dramatic dark red silk robes around my house as I play piano in the dark of night, just because of her, and also because I'm dramatic, but mostly because of her. Mostly because I'm dramatic. I found this is another one that requires the suspension of disbelief from the reader, and I love that genre. It's incredibly compelling. The way that Mona Awad writes is just so, it gets so confusing for so long, but so gripping at the same time, and I just love to see that genre. I can't recommend this book enough. It leans into the perpetuating of beauty standards that are so impossible to uphold as a woman in our society, and more obsessiveness, and oh god, it was so good. Especially if you're into like stylistic novels, I would absolutely recommend this one. All right, so that was all of the books I read in 2024. I guess in 7 months I'll be making another one of these for 2025. Yeah, I'm currently organizing all of my books, so hopefully next time I do this I'll have all of them. But yeah, thank you for watching till the end. I've had a great time being able to revisit all of these titles. Yeah, have a lovely day.